What an amazing presentation of colors. Thank you so much to the cadets here. Thank you so much to Principal Joe Derma. Good evening. I'm Congressman Dr. Raul Reese, and it's an honor to represent you in California's 25th Congressional District. I'm thrilled to see so many people here tonight. The place is big, so it looks smaller, but there's actually 350 people who are here, where we had about 600 or more folks, but we really appreciate it that everybody's here. And I want to start by extending a heartfelt thank you to Southwest High School and Principal Joe Derma for hosting us, and to the wonderful staff who are here today, helping set up everything and so that we can all gather here today. And a huge thank you to the security personnel and officers in uniform who are here to make sure that we all have a safe and enjoyable time. So round of applause for the men and women who are here seeing me for the first time. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and ask some questions and listen to what I have to say. I really do appreciate it. And I also want to thank my staff who are here. Can my staff please raise their hand? In Coachella, California, my parents are farm workers. They toiled in the fields day in and day out with minimal rest day after day, with calloused hands and tired backs to give us opportunities that they didn't have. And my older brother was the first to graduate from high school in the whole family. And I followed him. He was the first to go to college. I went to college. Since I was 4 years old, I always said I wanted to be a doctor, to come home and serve the community, go especially in underserved areas and people that suffer because they didn't have access to healthcare. And so I went off to UCLA. I went to Harvard Medical School, the Kennedy School of Government, and the School of Public Health. And after 17 years, after I left home as a 17-year-old, I came back to fulfill a promise I made to serve the community as a physician. And I first started about some of the accomplishments that we've had. But if you want more, you can visit ruiz.house.gov. And before we dive into your questions, I want to take a moment to highlight a few important ways my office can support you beyond events like this. One of the most important ways my office can help is through casework. So if you're having trouble with federal agencies like Social Security claims, VA benefits, Medicare, immigration paperwork, or even delayed tax refunds, my team is here to help you navigate the bureaucracy and get the answers that you deserve. We have a dedicated team who works tirelessly to assist constituents in cutting through red tape. And since I entered Congress, my office has resolved over 12,400 cases, putting more than $25 million back into the pockets of constituents. Thank you. Since I began representing Imperial Valley in 2023, about 2 years ago, I've helped bring in over $224,000 in benefits owed to constituents' pockets. So here's a quick example of how we helped a constituent just this past month. My office helped Ramon from Centro obtain his back pay from Social Security Administration. My office stepped in, worked with the Social Security Administration, and helped him get a lump sum of $52,260. That goes a long way these days. And the fix was possible thanks to the Social Security Fairness Act. How many of you have heard of the Social Security Fairness Act? So it's a law now that I co-sponsored and I proudly helped get it passed. And it got rid of the unfair rules that had been cutting people's Social Security just because they also earned a pension. And now seniors like Ramon are finally getting the full benefits that they've earned. And my mission is to cut through the red tape and get you the benefits that you earn and deserve. So a special shout out to my casework team who's also here. Thank you guys. Thank you for all your support and all your hard work to make sure that we have successes like we have here with Ramon. So to get in touch, or if you'd like to stay connected with my work and update my web, Raul Ruiz MD on Instagram, X, Blue Sky, Facebook, YouTube, and Threads. So in terms of the work that I'm doing in DC, I work daily to find ways to help improve your lives. And as your representative, I'm fighting for legislation that reflects our shared values, addresses your concerns, and empowers our communities. Whether it's expanding access to healthcare, creating good jobs, protecting our environment, or supporting veterans, I'm committed to introducing, supporting, and voting on laws that make a real difference. Going to veterans or spouses of veterans to work with a congressional office and learn more about a career in public service and to hone in some good skills on serving our veterans. So, Priscilla, you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone. How are you? Okay. Are we ready for some hard questions? Here we go. Congressman, how will Trump's tariffs impact our communities, and what are you doing to protect the economy?
How many of you had that question or have that concerns about the cost of living and the tariffs and what's happening? So a lot of you have those concerns. So look, we're living in difficult times right now. The cost of living are going up instead of down. And when costs are going up, the last thing you want to do is to do things that would raise costs. Because I get it. Like, I understand. When I fill up the gas tank, it's costing me more. When I go grocery shopping, it's costing more. And we're having to budget so that way, you know, we can make ends meet better. And we're sacrificing some things, like some leisurely things that we used to do in order to pay for the essentials. How many of you are going through that right now? Yeah. So the Trump tariff, in our companies, in order to buy those products, have to pay an additional amount. That's the tariff tax, okay? The companies pay that amount, and then when they sell it in their stores, they increase the amount of what they're selling it for in order to pay for that tariff tax. So that Trump tariff tax is a Trump tax on the American families. And before the pause, when all this started, it started with a tariff on Canada and Mexico and China. And early on, when those tariffs existed, economists said that those tariffs would cost American families on average $3,000 more a year. That's $3,000 more a year. $3,000. It's like a tax. You just, throughout the year, you're paying it by extra cost. Now, when he had that plan that included all the countries in the world, and before he had a 90-day pause, all of those tariffs, economists say, would have cost $7,000 in extra costs a year. That's a lot of money. And it's like increasing the earned income tax by 9%. By 9%. So right now, when costs are already high, it's not the right time to do a blanket tariffs, especially with our allies, across the board. Okay? So we've pushed back, have communicated aggressively how tariffs are an increased cost to American families that are already paying a lot more. And we have 4 Republicans, senators, including Grassley and Ted Cruz, who have introduced legislation that would take the power to tariff back in the hands of Congress. A bill in the House that would more codify it. Now, and that's when it gets introduced in the House, I'm going to co-sponsor that. We're going to do a discharge petition. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a petition that if you get the vast majority of members, then it forces the Speaker of the House to bring it up for a vote. And we'll talk more about the Constitution and the power of the purse within Congress. So that's on that question.
Thank you, Congressman. What are you doing to protect Medicaid from the planned cuts in the House Republican budget?
So Medicaid is, in California it's called Medi-Cal. And the Republicans are pushing forward a bill that is a tax bill. It's the tax cut bill that they did during the first administration, where we know that 80% of the benefits went to 1% of the population. And now they want to do it again, but they want to do it permanently. So there's no sundown. And so they recently put a bill on the House floor and the Senate called a budget resolution that would instruct the committees on what they can spend or cut in order to go to a process called the reconciliation process, where the Senate doesn't have to have a filibuster, or they don't need 60 votes to pass it. They can just pass it with a simple majority. And when they did that, in it, they said that the Energy and Commerce Committee, all these people are poking up out of everywhere, I'm just like turning around. The Energy and Commerce Committee had to cut $880 billion. Okay, and they told other committees how many billions they needed to cut to pay for $4.5 to $5 trillion in tax cuts. The cuts in committees only adds up to 1.5 to 2 trillion. So this is good. The math doesn't add up. It's going to add trillions to the deficit once again. And in the Energy and Commerce Committee, I sit on that committee. It has the Health Subcommittee, and if you were to zero out everything to do with the Department of Commerce, everything to do with the Department of Energy, everything to do with the Department of Health and Human Services, except for Medicaid, if you were to zero everything out, you know how much they can cut? Only $200 billion. So where are they going to find $680 billion? They're going to have to change Medicaid and cut Medicaid in order to find $680 billion. And so this is how they're going to do it. They're going to create work requirements. One, that's the first way. The second way is they're going to end programs, matching programs, where providers will pay a sum, and then the CMS, especially in under-resourced area like Imperial Valley, CMS will no longer match their funding. So, and they're going to cap the per capita amount and reduce the federal contribution to that. That means the state is on the hook. And what the state's going to do is they're going to cut the provider reimbursement. So providers are going to take Medicaid, Medi-Cal less. Then they're going to cut eligibility, and then they're going to cut benefits. Okay? So that's how it's going to work. And 42% of my whole district, and more than nearly 50% of the people here in Imperial Valley utilize Medi-Cal, including in the whole district, 8,000 people with disability and 12,000 seniors who use the Medi program. So this is a real big concern. But I also have hope, because there's a couple of senators, the senator from Alaska, Republican, and the senator from Maine, that are very skittish about this. And they only can lose, the margin is so tight in the Senate right now, they can't lose very many. And so but they only need a slight majority. So we mounted a defense in Congress. I helped form a doctors caucus that would get the doctors organized to work in our Congress to inform the public. And we need to raise public sentiment, so that way everybody knows what's happening. And the vast majority of people that are on the Medicaid program are in southern states. So that's a big concern, and should be a big concern for those Republicans that represent those districts. So I'm a hell no on that bill, when I vote on it, I'm a hell no, and I'll be speaking about it aggressively.
When you say caucus, are you talking about the Senate and the House, or just the House?
The doctor's caucus?
Caucus.
No. So, we don't have any, it's both, but we don't have any Democratic doctor senators. So there's 6 of us in the House. All right?
How can a private citizen like Elon Musk access all of our personal information, and what are you doing to protect Social Security?
How many of you had that question? I told you we picked the most important ones, but the most common ones. So I'm glad that a lot of you had those questions. So look, when I heard that Doge, Elon Musk, and his young staff were getting information from Social Security and the IRS and others, it's concerning. It's concerning for pretty sure that many folks didn't vote for people to get their private information from Social Security or the IRS. You can imagine, I mean, everybody, my whole life, I lived under the premise of don't tell anybody your Social Security number, right? That was something that you protected, and it's something that you held and you guarded it, and you kept it close to the chest. And then you pair the Social Security number with the information they can get from you in the IRS, meaning your bank account, your home address, then in your date of birth, then it puts people's information at risk. And we don't know what they're doing with it. We don't know what they plan to do with it, but you got a guy who owns X or Twitter and has a whole bunch of billionaire buddies and large corporations. You know, I'm sure a lot of people would like to know information about individual consumers. So this caused a big outrage, and there's several things that happened. One, and two, there's also legislation, one from Leader Hakeem Jeffries, and another from John Larson, that would prevent that from happening, because currently individuals need to go through training, and then there's a rigorous process of being able to handle these private information that those folks didn't do. And so this bill would ensure that only federal employees with that type of training can access it, and then it also will provide oversight and accountability if they don't. So that's what's happening right now. We put a bill that will move forward, that will prevent that and from happening in the future. And also a bill that would also bring that information back and take it away from the hands of those individuals. Now, since we're on the topic of Social Security, there's a lot of concern about some messaging that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have said lately about Social Security being a Ponzi scheme, about Social Security, all these fraud that's been happening with Social Security checks going towards people that are 150 years old. So let me just say that it's not true. Just like the big lie that he won the last election, this is another lie. The election against Joe Biden, this is another lie. It's a software program that if they didn't know what the date of birth at that time was, they would put it into a specific number, and that's how it was. They weren't getting checks, they were mailed to them, okay? But all of these things has people concerned because, you know, when there's a big lie, there's a big action for that lie. And what we do know now is that they're closing down offices, and they're doing mass firing for the people that work in the Social Security Administration. So these are the individuals that process, right, the information. These are individuals that work there. So they're decreasing the capacity of Social Security to function at a level that all of you are accustomed to in the past. Now, what we're seeing with this, and people are saying, oh, but we're not cutting benefits yet, right? They're not, but what you're seeing is you're seeing a longer wait time. You're seeing a lot of dropped phone calls. You're seeing websites crashing, right? It's like the VA. Oh, we're not touching VA benefits. That's bullshit, because process your benefits. They're firing the people that take care of you in the hospital, right? So when you're waiting for those benefits that never arrive, it's like they're taking those benefits away from you. And that's what people are feeling right now at the VA.
Okay, Congressman, on Trump and Doge.
Okay, who had that question? All right, so I've heard that Democrats don't have a plan, they don't have messaging, they're not organized. So let me tell you what our plan is. Let me tell you how we're organized. Let me tell you what that message is, right? Meaning that Trump's in the White House, the Republican majority in the House and the Senate. In terms of the legislative power, it's very little. But this is what we're doing right now. One is we're fighting in the courts with lawsuits. Two, we're fighting in Congress to provide legislation to show an alternative of what we would do if we held the majority. Okay? And three, we're fighting in our communities by building public sentiment. Public sentiment, as Abraham Lincoln said, with it, you cannot lose. Without it, you can never win. Public sentiment is everything. And so we know that. And we know that that's why we're holding town halls. That's why we're holding rallies throughout America. That's why we're talking about these very important issues and making people aware of what's happening in not only in DC, but in our grocery stores, at our gas tank, and all over our economy. The things that we talk about in the kitchen table, and that's our message. Our message is to focus on the kitchen table aspects of the cost of living, our economy, our jobs, and your rights. Okay? So in terms of the courts, Donald Trump has put in about 100 and over 130 executive orders. There has been over 190 lawsuits against those. And of those that have had a decision, about 45 he's lost, and he's only won about 5. So in the courts, we're winning. There's been a pause or a hold or the 5 times. Okay? So, as you know, in our Constitution, when there's a difference or any accusation that Congress did a piece of legislation that violated the Constitution, then the way you dispute that is through the judicial branch. If the president does something that violates the Constitution, in which case he's done many, then where do we go? The judicial branch is the arbitrator, the decision maker. Now I know many of you have the concerns I have. The judicial branch can move quite slow. And the other concern is, what if he doesn't obey the judicial branch? Or what if it goes through the appeals and it goes through the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, which is a conservative court right now, goes with Trump, and then he continues to do what we're doing. So we're being very vigilant on that. Those which exists, then that's authoritarianism, ruling by intimidation and threats and threat of violence. So that's the state where we're in. In Congress, we're introduced pieces of legislation that will reverse a lot of these executive orders. But as you know already, we don't have the majority. We don't decide which bills get to the House floor for a vote. And in our communities, this is what we're doing. We gotta get out. We gotta talk about what's happening. We gotta talk about what's happening as it relates to our lives, right? All this ideological stuff up here, people aren't really paying attention. But what they pay attention to is the pocketbooks, the purses, is, am I gonna have enough to pay the mortgage or the rent? Am I gonna have enough to pay back my student loans? Am I gonna have a job that is gonna help give me benefits, right? Am I gonna be able to feed my family? Or am I even gonna be able to take a vacation this year? So those are the questions, and that's why we're laser focused on those issues. One thing for sure, and it was asked earlier, is how are we going to protect the economy? We protect the economy when we protect workers' rights. We protect the economy when we protect unions and their ability to bargain collectively. And I know that. I see some labor friends here. Anybody from unions here? Yep, thank you. That's how we're going to protect the working families. That's how we increase the middle class. That's how we're going to be able to protect our economy by ensuring that we can bargain collectively. And Donald Trump just did a executive order that eliminated the federal union from doing just that. And so it's going to make it harder for these people to remain in their jobs or even to be hired back on. So there's a lawsuit on that too. We just have to wait and see where that is. But we're not just waiting, we're also supporting those lawsuits with amicus briefs and other opinions of the court that we can provide.
Can you give us an example of a law you proposed?
Hold on, when's a law? Which law?
Well, you're saying that you're proposing laws in Congress. What law have you proposed to stop it?
So there's a law that will prevent the Social Security offices from being closed. There's laws that would reverse his executive orders that would that would mandate people to have their voter ID when they vote. There's other laws that would ensure that the people that were fired by USAID had their jobs back. There's laws that would reinstate USAID. Now, that's the trick though, because he did not have the authority to eliminate USAID, like he doesn't have the authority to eliminate the Department of Education. The Congress, as a co-equal branch, has the constitutional authority of determining which agencies exist and which programs exist and to what level do we fund them through appropriations. Okay? Every year we have debates. Do we fund this program by this much or this much? Do we eliminate, close this office? And we vote on those things on the House floor. That's your voice. That's the voice of the people through your representatives in Congress. So a president does not have the authority to eliminate departments that Congress has authorized through law. The president cannot zero out funding what Congress through law has funded. So in fact, there's a bill, when Nixon tried to do this, Congress said, okay, let's be even more clear. Let's put the Impoundment Act. And the Impoundment Act says that if a president wants to zero out a program, he has to go to Congress, give them the reason why, and within 60 days, Congress has to give him an answer. That's the Impoundment Act. That's what's in law right now. So the fact that he's doing that clearly violates not only our Constitution, but violates the law. And that's why we're fighting those in the courts.
Thank you, Congressman. So just be mindful, we are going to be doing the raffle, so please have your tickets ready. I'm going to be calling the last 4 numbers. You guys ready? I'm going to call the first 3 numbers in the raffle. The first one is 98661. 98661.
Well, that's neat.
There's one there.
All right.
You're gonna call
The next one is 98719. 98719. up in the front as well. And 98644. 98644.
Great, you're all right here.
All right, perfect. All in the front.
Wait, can you test that mic?
Test.
Yes, my name is Aida Valdez, and I have daughters that are teachers. And I know that he wants to eliminate the Department of Education. And I am concerned about what California is going to do with the teachers. I know right now in Santa Ana County, they're letting go about almost 400 teachers that actually have to go before the board and compete. This is really sad, people. Compete for their jobs and bring up other teachers that are qualified. And these teachers have been teachers for 14 years. And these teachers give from their heart to the students, are amazing students. Santiago Elementary, and she says, Mom, it's heartbreaking because I've worked with these teachers. I know they're so amazing. And so it breaks my heart that they want to break down the system to make these private schools that's only going to benefit the ones that own these private schools. Because teachers go to school to teach our children, and they know how to do it. We go to work to support our community and our teachers. So what is Trump's administration going to do with the Department of Education? How is it going to trickle down to our local communities?
Yeah. So, it's a good question. This is what they're planning to do. And this was also a part of that Project 2025. Remember that when we were out there during the campaigns and this is Project 2025, and he was like, I don't know anything about it. He hired those guys that wrote it as their chief administrators, eliminating the Department of Education was part of Project 2025. It was there. We talked about it, and everybody said, no, that's not going to happen. And that's what he said. And his executive order is to eliminate the Department of Education. Okay? And what does the Department of Education do so that we can understand what the effects are going to be back home? The Department of Education helps with students' civil rights, so that they're not discriminated against as to which school you go to or what organizations you can belong to, which clubs and all that. Civil rights. 2, it helps with people with disabilities to make sure they have rights, but there's also programs and funding so that they can help the local schools get the tools needed to help the individuals with learning disabilities, with physical disabilities, people that are in the spectrum of autism, get the tutoring and get the assistance that they need to be competitive. Okay, that's the second thing. The third thing is that they help fund and close the gap for Title I schools that live in low resource community, low tax-based community, so that way they can also compete at a level playing field. Because a lot of schools exist in low tax base. Many of the schools here exist in low tax base areas, so local communities and state taxes can't give it, there's not enough to go around for the school loans. And they help first generation college students with programs at those universities to help them stay in the university and not leave the university. So note that I didn't say curriculum, right? A lot of these Republicans like to say, oh, well, the curriculum's terrible, we don't remove the federal government. I didn't say the Department of Education has control over our local schools, because they don't. And that's important to make, because that's what the opposition is trying to convince people to say, yeah, we don't want the Department of Education in our local schools. They don't do that. They don't cite your curriculum, and they don't have control over your local schools. But they do provide those other resources, okay? We would lose, the whole district would lose up to $350 million a year if we no longer had those kind of fundings. Now, the Republicans say, oh, but the programs will still exist. What do? Like I mentioned before, they hurt the capacity for those programs to function. So for the student loans, they said, okay, I'm going to put the student loans in with the Small Business Administration. Student loans are way more than the Small Business Administration loans for small businesses. But before they did that, what did they do? They cut nearly 50% of the workers in the Small Business Administration. So they're going to give.
Good afternoon, Congressman Grease. My name is Frances Biopi, and I'm the president of a newly formed and chartered club called Democrats United Imperial Valley, otherwise known affectionately as the OGs. We are a group of seasoned Democrats who have deep roots in Imperial Valley and care passionately about the current state of our U.S. government and the negative impact this is and will cause Imperial Valley. You have mentioned throughout your presentation that we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the state. We have over 50% of our children on Medicaid. We have many seniors who only receive Social Security for their retirement. All of our seniors in Imperial Valley either receive Medicare or are on what we call Medi-Medi, Medi-Cal and Medicare, due to their low income. We have over 6,000 families receiving food assistance just from the Imperial Valley Food Bank, which is only one of several food assistance programs in the valley. Our veterans, after many years of traveling to San Diego for medical services, are finally able to go to a small VA clinic now here in Centro. It appears that all of these programs are helping our most vulnerable population, are now at a tremendous risk of being eliminated or cut to the point of becoming ineffective. And you have mentioned that as well. So, when are you going to get ready to impeach Trump?
Yeah. So first, we have to win back the House. That's when we're going to get ready. And that's part of that overall plan, right? We have 2 years, and we have to win back the House. You can't impeach him if you don't have the majority in the House of Representatives. And if you can find enough representatives, Republicans, to cross over, then we're game. However, they won't. They won't. They won't for several reasons.
You got no backbone.
I'll talk about that. But one, I mean, many of them agree with what he's doing, and those and other relatives. And so they're leaving. So remember I said, if you rule through intimidation and violence, that's authoritarianism. And that's happening right now. So they won't. But that's why public sentiment is everything. That's why we have to hold the line for these next 2 years in the courts, in Congress, and we have to push until the next election, and then we have to win back the House. So then we can have hearings and call them in and ask tough questions. That's the role of Congress, going back to the Constitution. We have the power of providing oversight and holding the administration accountable. It's the checks and balances, co-equal branches, 3 co-equal branches. Right now, Republicans, the majority, have not held a single hearing to ask them questions about what these executive orders are doing. How's the VA? How's Social Security? How's the IRS? How are all these agencies functioning? Not a single hearing to ask them questions that the vast majority of Americans have right now. They are turning a blind eye. So what are we doing? We're demanding that they do that, but we've also gone to the building. I've been inside Health and Human Services demanding a meeting with Secretary Kennedy to talk about his ideas of vaccines. I've gone to the VA to rally and talk about what firing those individuals are going to do to our veterans who rely on those benefits and healthcare services that they provide. So we're pushing as much as we can, and we're going to continue to do so, and it's going to escalate, but we need to win back the House.
Good evening, Congressman Reese. My name is Silvia Marroquin, council member here in El Centro. And, my question really covers, all of my colleagues that also represent cities here in the Imperial Valley. And what we're concerned about is how all these cuts are going to impact, federal funding that we receive in order for our cities to continue to thrive in terms of economic development. I know, for example, here in the city of El Centro, we are depending on, some of the earmarks to continue on the expansion of Imperial Avenue, which will then bring in more business and better job opportunities for our residents here in El Centro and throughout the Imperial Valley. So, it's a huge concern. I also have many concerns in terms of what is going on at the Washington level. And, how will all of these rallies, how are they going to impact and get the message across to Trump that he cannot take this country over?
I don't think he cares. So I don't think he cares about the rallies or all of these things. That's why the courts, the thing he cares about right now is the lawsuits and the courts. And he said he's gonna comply with the courts, so we're gonna have to hold his feet to the fire for those. Okay, we're gonna have to hold his feet to the fire.
And Wall Street.
Okay, and Wall Street. So Imperial Valley has a ton to lose. Like if I can open my heart and tell you all, this is the community, like those of our communities around the country that are gonna lose the most. The most. He's cutting. He's cutting. So communities like ours that need the resources the most are gonna get hurt the most. Diversity. When you have diversity is good for business. Diversity is good for ideas. Diversity is strong for our economy. But if you go after diversity, who is it going to hurt? Our economy, our businesses, etc. But also communities like ours. When you have morbidities like heart disease, lung disease, that are experienced more in Latino communities, Latina communities, well, don't you want to address what's happening in these communities? I'm not saying don't address them anywhere else. I'm just saying it might make common sense to address why is it happening here? What are the different factors? There's been cuts to programs, research, and funding for grants that address any issue within Latino, Black, Native American, or any issue to deal with women. That's the inclusion part. Making sure that women know the aspects of what we do. I believe in that. Okay? Because we know that women oftentimes have been left out of research, of job opportunities. Hell, they're even left out in an equal pay till this day that we need to rectify. So when they go after DEI and all these programs, they're going after communities like ours. And the communities like ours are going to hurt the most when it's all said and done. And why? Because of reverse equity, where they want to cut and cut and cut in order to give tax breaks in this tax bill to the wealthiest billionaires and multinational corporations in our country who need those beliefs. That's what we're up against. That's what we're dealing. That's the justification. Because remember what I said when they did this budget, they didn't say go after waste, fraud, and abuse. That wasn't their primary motive. Their primary motive was cut $880 billion so that they can pay for a $4 trillion tax cut for billionaires in our country. And the CBO has estimated that it would increase our deficit by $6 to $7 trillion. So don't give me this, we need a cut because we're in debt because of our debt and our deficit. Don't give me none of this. When they're planning on raising it by $6 to $7 trillion with this tax bill. I get fired up, so.
Thank you. Yeah. All right, I just want to remind everyone,
I got the signal. I'm going to keep my answers a little shorter so we get more questions. And is that okay? Is that okay?
It might be hard.
I'll do it.
My name's Agustin Fondana, retired Navy veteran, been out 20 years. I'm also across the border when I was a year old, and I took advantage, and I'm here, representing some of the brothers that are still struggling. I'm a quartermaster for the VFW, for the last VFW here in the Valley. We do honor guards. So far right now, we've donated over $2,000 of money we've been able to scrounge up from stuff that we do. But our concern here is, our concern is we had to create a peer support group, encourage other veterans to come in, because they don't even know where to go. I mean, Lorena at the Veteran Service, she's only one, and she's been there a long time. If she's gone, I mean, that office, that's a lifeblood for a lot of, lifeline for a lot of the brothers and sisters here, and she can retire anytime she wants. But, I mean, you talk to her, she believes that stuff. She believes in everything that she does, and she's going to stay with us. But our concern is, why don't we have another veteran service rep? Why don't we have any outreach? The outreach right now is really, it's been a phone call. We have somebody that can't even afford groceries, or make a VA appointment because they don't have any gas money. We step up where we can and feed up for that. So that was my concern, was trying to staff up, our local veteran service office, because it seems like a lot of people forgot that this country is as good as it is because of its military, but it's all volunteer force. How am I supposed to convince this younger generation to step up, and we're not going to be taken care of? They're not going to be taken care of. My kids don't want to go to the service, because I had to put them to 2 deployments, and see the solid struggle that I had. Nobody did jet mechanic around here. And I didn't even have a GI Bill when I got out. The Navy cheated me out of that. I didn't have a GI Bill, so I'm at work ethic. That's how I got where I'm at.
Thank you.
But my concern is just that, is getting Lorena some more help, for the rest of us, and that's also a recruiting tool.
Thank you. Thank you. And you went to, thank you for your service. And you went to our BU, didn't you? Our Veterans University? I remember you there. Thank you. Thank you for going. So our Veterans University, I've been doing it since, I think 2013, 2014, but here we started once I got elected and represented you all. We started one here where we invite all the veterans to come in. It's sort of like a train-the-trainer, where we bring in veterans and we talk about their benefits and how to access their benefits and we talk about issues like this. And Lorena is an angel. She's very well loved, she's very well respected because she does a lot of good work, and I'm praying that she does not retire soon. So in terms of the support, there's several things we can approach this. One is for sure, I'll work with you. We can advocate to the San Diego VA system. I normally work with Loma Linda because of my previous years, but we can work with San Diego VA system and the VA to determine what we can do to bring in more veteran representatives who can be liaisons and help start benefits and the application for benefits. The other thing that we can tackle is by encouraging some of the VSOs, veteran service organizations, like Wounded Warriors, the different veterans groups that VFW, American Legion, etc., that also can have another veteran representative, a veteran serving officer within the organization, and work together collaboratively to do the outreach. And then those are some of the ways that we can work on that.
Because right now, I mean, there's no advertisement that they're hiring, for that.
Yeah, there's no advertising. I think folks here have relied on San Diego a lot, and they just started a program here. We need to build that program out so that there's peer support specialists, like there are in other clinics, where if somebody's having PTSD, somebody's having mental health, crisis and they need that support, there's people that do that. That will, I know some folks in the Palm Desert office that will actually go into people's homes, make home calls that way. But we need to create the liaison to help us get your benefits started. And also, my office does that. So if there are any veterans who want to learn about what benefits they are eligible for, have them call my office. If there are any veterans who have submitted their claim and they haven't heard from the VA, have them call my office. We can put an inquiry in. If there's a veteran who got denied and wants to appeal that, call my office. And that number is 424-8888.
Sarah's been wonderful here in the valley.
Yeah, she's awesome.
My next question.
Yes, on Medicaid.
Dr. Carlos Ramirez, what options are there to help with the debt of our local hospitals to ensure success of the new IBHD? I work with both hospitals, at Centro for 12 years, 5 years for about 5, and I've been in the middle of, the pros and the cons and everything, but now that this is a national reality that we're merging together, the question to me is, like, I know there's a lot of debt from both hospitals that have quite a lot that needs to be paid. Besides what we're doing locally, besides the union of the hospitals, is there any funds or thing from Congress? I mean, we do things like that to FEMA for a natural disaster, things like that. Is there anything that we can do to tap into other support so the hospitals are not in the red?
I'm not aware of a fund that will help pay off debt from hospitals that have incurred debt. I'm not aware of those. My staff can do some extra research to determine if there are programs that they can apply for. I don't think that there's like a grant that will just pay it off for you. I think if anything, maybe a loan. And and if there doesn't exist, I think there should be. So, I think that's a good idea for my staff to write down, to put some kind of low interest rate loan with a 5-year grace period so they can get their finances up in order. But that would be a piece of legislation that would move forward.
And first of all, intimidation and threatening during elections happens in Imperial Valley too. My question, I want to bring attention to our healthcare district here again. We have atrocious healthcare. Never mind that they're merging, never mind that we are in so much debt. But when a nurse has to hold the electrical cord on that EKG machine so that my possibly dying husband can have an EKG, we're in trouble. When our maternal ward is closed and when we call attention to it, all we are told is a baby can be scheduled. Babies can be born in an emergency room. Really? Have we fallen to those levels? I implore you, Dr. Reese, you are a medical doctor. You know that these small little things either make us or break us, and right now they are breaking us.
Yeah, so this is why I'm so concerned about cuts to Medicaid. Because in communities like ours that exist in this type of nightmarish system, when you cut Medicaid, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. People's longevity and health, the main driver of that is not your genes per se. It's not whether you have certain risks. It's your zip code. It's the social determinant of health. It's your zip code. Your zip codes, where you live, and whether you have access to care, determines how long you're going to live. And now we heard why. When you don't have a cardiac cath center to take you in those precious moments, those first 10 minutes to take you in and do a cath and open your clot, you're more likely gonna die from that heart attack. If you don't have a stroke center, where you, once you get that stroke, and you have to get in those golden hours, that golden moment, to do interventional radiology, TPA or medication or interventional radiology, and you have that stroke center, you're more likely to die from that stroke or be permanently disabled because of where you live, your zip code, because you don't have those services. I spoke to the Inland Empire Health Plan, and we have an upcoming meeting with the CEOs of our hospitals and the program that manages your Medi-Cal. And the hospitals in Riverside County and San Bernardino County wrote a letter saying that if Medi-Cal or Medicaid program gets cut significantly, they would be forced to close their doors. Whether you have Medi-Cal or private insurance, if you don't have an emergency department to take care of you when you're in an emergency, whether you are a Medi-Cal or not, and the physicians no longer can afford to keep the doors open, and that's your doctor too, what happens? It affects us all. So, the first fight right now we have to do is we have to fight like hell to protect Medi-Cal, to protect the Medicaid program. Because if that gets cut significantly, then it's going to be that much.
Stop paying them, then I think they will all be released. Is that true?
Well, I would think that if they stop getting paid, I think they would release them. I believe that would certainly return whoever was sent over there. And I do think that Congress has the power to return them and also to stop those funding. That is true. Whether or not we can get Republicans to join in a bill to do that, not in this Congress. Thanks.
Andy Garcia, I'm from Heber. My dad served in Iraq and Kosovo, Japan, wherever you can think of, he was there. I've always wanted to join the military, but the older I got, I realized that maybe the military isn't doing all that great everywhere, but I still want to join. I want to join the Space Force specifically. We're currently seeing American citizens and non-citizens have their right of due process being taken away. I was born in Tijuana, Mexico. I am a citizen because my dad fought for this country. I saw things my dad shouldn't have seen because he showed them to me by accident one time. What would you do if homegrown citizens are being taken away under this administration? Will you put your life on the line for us?
I'll put my life on the line, yes.
Thank you.
So, first of all, thank you for your service as well, because I know that when your parents serve or a spouse serves, they're also serving our country. And I can tell by your side that there was some service that you gave them to, so thank you for that. Look, it's very important to understand that in our Constitution, everybody has a right to due process. Whether you're a citizen or not, it's in our Constitution. Our Constitution knew when to say citizens, and our Constitution knew when they were referring to people, as in everyone, right? So, everybody has a right to due process. People being, taken without due process is violating our Constitution and our law.
Perfect, thank you so much. Well, I 98514.
Oh, wait.
We already got one?
Oh, there was another number? Yeah, there was three.
You're right. I looked at you and I was like, oh.
What do we got? Yes.
Supervisors District 3. Thank you for being here tonight. A lot of the questions are extremely important to all of us, electeds, all the communities, in terms of how the administration is impacting us. But I'm going to go on maybe in a direction that people aren't expecting, but we have an airport. And our small county airport is an essential form of transportation for all of us. And we're reaching out to you to see, amongst all the other issues that are going on, they're important, and you answered a lot of those questions, but we also have an airport, and we're looking to see if there's any kind of direct connection you can get us with the the FAA in Washington to help us, maybe bring some resources to help us out with that.
To develop the airport or to close the airport?
Not to close it, to help us keep it open.
If Beaumont wanted to close theirs, then I wanted to close
We do
theirs.
not want to close it because
Okay.
it is an essential form of transportation in our local community. So if, we've been working with someone from the FAA, and we're hoping that you can help us with any kind of resources that are available.
That's an easy one, yes. Thank you.
Congressman, I have a question, really important question.
If we very much for coming. I know you guys have a lot going on in your lives, and so I want to thank you for coming, and I want to thank you for your questions. I want to thank you for not losing hope. I want to thank you for not being cynical, and I want to thank you for believing in our democratic process, believing that you have the right to be heard from your member of Congress, believing that you have the right to have a voice in what we do in Washington, D.C. And whether it's me or somebody else, holding your representatives accountable, making sure that they're listening to you, that they're paying attention to you, and that they represent you like they would represent their own families where they're at. And that's what I bring to the table, because when I got Imperial Valley in the redistricting, I was celebrating. Why? Because I didn't run for Congress to represent the rich and powerful. They're doing okay for themselves. I ran for Congress to help communities just like our communities. And so that's why I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everyone. If you guys have your white cards, make sure to give it to one of our staff members or bring it up to the table. Thank you so much. Once again, if you have the white cards with your questions, you may bring it up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Reed.